Good morning. So, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm John Stamalos, and I'm joined once again by my dearest friend and colleague Tilke. In our previous conversations, we've explored your work and also your different experiences in breathwork. So, today we're going to go a little bit deeper into a fascinating area that for many people may have not heard about, which is warm water and cold water breathwork. Um, let's explore these practices, what it involves, how they're different from each other, what people may experience, and why safety, screening, and skilled facilitation are important. So, Tilka, it's wonderful to have you back. So let's begin, maybe just for the people that don't know who you are and haven't seen any of the previous interviews. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and describe your background in breathwork, please.
My name is Tilke, and not Tilka, like Leonard Orr used to say. I got, I had my first rebirthing breathwork sessions I think, in 1978, and it was horrible. And in the middle of that session, I heard a voice in my head that said to me, "This is going to be your next career." And I couldn't do anything but obey that order. So that's how it felt. And then a year later, I met my future colleague, Hans Menzing, and we decided to work together, although we are completely different character-wise. But in the inside, we had the same vision of creating a 3-year breathwork training. And that was just because we thought there were a lot of American trainers coming over in those days to Europe. And they would work a weekend or maybe 3 days and blow up the energy in people to a very high level. And then they just chuffed off. And so
Mm,
they never saw the positive nor the negative results of their work. So they didn't recognize that sometimes people having these experiences of high energy and insights, but they were not integrated.
mm,
And so Hans and I decided to do a 3-year training because we said, like I said, someone in a jig, when a hairdresser needs 3 years to learn how to treat your hair,
mm,
we are going to treat people and help them to get a better connection to their heart. Would we at least use 3 years of our lives to learn that properly?
mm,
And so it took us 5 years to develop the training, but then it was there. And we worked together for 43 years altogether. And so 3 years ago, no, yeah, 3 years ago now, I stopped doing those trainings. I stopped doing supervision work in Germany.
mm,
And now I only do those 2-day intensives here at my own house, where I see 2 people for 2 days and they stay in the room watching, observing each other's sessions. And so there is a good kind of supporting energy because there is another one. So we are 3.
mm,
And I always have the impression that, like it is said in the Bible, when there are 2 or 3
mm,
together in my name, I will be there.
mm,
I will be with them. And I always have understood that principle as when you and I get together for the purpose of healing, that
mm.
third energy that's bigger than we are is with us.
Wonderful.
And so I'm still working. But
Awesome.
yes, I'm still working because I'm still learning.
So let's talk now about what first drew you to working with the breath in water. Like, I know that I was originally trained in experiencing it. And then, of course, when I became a breath worker, I met other breath workers and, of course, learnt from some of the pioneers as well about what it is. So, what drew you to working with the breath in water, Tilke?
Leonard Orr, who initiated this whole type of work with the conscious connected breath, started out in his own hot tub.
Mm,
And it's not only even true, he started out to do it in his own bathtub
mm,
because he was in a period in his life that he didn't feel well mentally. And for some reason or another, he found that while he was immersed in hot water in his bathtub, and his breathing started to be relaxed and connected, he began to have memories of early childhood and even birth.
mm,
And so when he spoke about this with other people, they said, "Could you do that with us in a hot tub?" And so he took them in a hot tub with a snorkel
mm,
and submersed and a nose clip on their nose, and then forward, lying in the water, being supported. And so the body becomes kind of weightless.
mm,
And people started having these amazing experiences about having memories, what it was to be completely supported, like being in the womb.
mm,
And so when I met Leonard, as he came to stay with us in Holland, because he was going to do a training in Holland and in Germany, of course, we spoke about hot water. And I never did hot water work with Leonard personally, but we have spoken about it so often. And he has so often explained me about it. And so when we developed our training program, we incorporated every year a 5-day hot water training. And there is something very special that we found. In the beginning, we would let the people to be longer time in it. How do you say that? Immersed in the water, being carried, normally by 2 other people. One to hold the snorkel up
mm.
so that there is no water running into that snorkel.
Very important.
Yeah, very important. And just to keep it all safe. But then what happened often was, first of all, we had to experiment with the temperature of the water. So if it is like 38, max 39 degrees, it's bearable. And the people who are facilitating the session don't get completely fuzzy in their heads.
Mm,
And the second thing was that after about 20, 30 minutes being immersed in the hot water, there is enough emotional and psychological material being touched,
mm,
and it's easier to integrate it when we have the people go out of the water.
mm,
And now there's something very important, because the moving out of the water, and I've seen it hundreds of times, is the moment where they begin often to memorize the moving from the room towards the outside of the mother. And for many of us, it's too early.
mm,
There is where it starts to be painful for the baby's body. And that is often where people have a memory about it going too fast.
mm,
And so you get all these first birth thinking convictions, like, I can't do this.
mm,
I can't move so fast forward. I am much too weak. It's horribly cold outside.
mm.
And even if the room where we did all that work was quite warm, being immersed in hot water of about 38 degrees and then moving out, you still feel the coldish on the skin. And it's exactly what the baby must have experienced.
Yes, the transition from womb to atmosphere, experiencing gravity, experiencing temperature, lights,
Yeah,
all of that is really interesting in how I guess it affects our psyche,
yeah.
our first imprints, right? And that's why I know for breath work, even a dry breath work, we ask a lot of questions about how people were born in order for us to identify if there's any sort of transition patterns that we develop because of if there was a lot of trauma at birth, right? Yeah. So, um, so how do you explain breath work to your clients? Like that never experienced water breathwork sessions, because of course there's also the cold water breathwork. But let's continue with the hot water. I think that's the most interesting one for me. Um, Well, actually, cold water breathwork is pretty amazing as well. And I'm not talking about the Wim Hof
Has
technique.
a completely different
Yeah,
aim.
yeah. So when I was in Sweden a couple of years ago at a summit there, I was talking with Bo, who you know, Bo Wallström, very dearly, lovely person. And he always said to me, John, never make the water more than 38 degrees Celsius because it's not good for our brain. So I've always remembered that.
Yeah,
And I make sure whenever I do that work, my jacuzzi starts at 38 because you've got the lid off, it tends to drop a little bit, but you definitely need it to be safe, and you don't want anyone
yeah.
hooking themselves really with their head down in the water. Um, so just walk us through a typical water breathwork session. How, from preparation through to completion, how do you do it?
First of all, we always had guests in our professional training course in the
Mm,
hot water
mm,
training. And mostly those were people who had done already some private sessions with
mm.
someone.
So you do group sessions, is that what you would do, right?
Yeah,
Mm,
they were in a group. And but the people who had never done any breath work before, we would always have them have a normal breathwork session from one of our third year students before they went into the water. Because the hot water in itself originates such a strong experience sometimes.
mm,
And although when they are breathing really through the snorkel, the breathing by itself has the tendency to connect itself. So, first of all, people wash themselves, they shower, they wash their hair. When the women have long hair or the man, they bind it up so that it's not all the hair is going into the tub.
mm,
That's kind of physical preparation. You can all read that in that article about hot water breath work. And then they go slowly inside the water. And then there comes the point where they are in, and many of them are scared to put a nose clip on, put a snorkel in their mouth, and bend forward. So sometimes you have to sit with them as the facilitator till here in the water
mm.
with your head up and do little games, like touch your
Yeah.
nose,
Do
make
you not
them.
use masks at all? Because sometimes I use the mask with that covers the nose and then the snorkel, because that's very comfortable for people as well.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's what I never used those because we didn't have them in that center, which
Right.
was the best work, a hot
Mm.
water center in Holland.
Mm.
So then, if someone is afraid, you have them put a snorkel in and start breathing like this, not immersed.
Yes. Yeah, I do the same. Yeah.
And then you go down a little bit so they can feel, and then you put the nose clip, and then suddenly they are willing But if
Mm.
they are still too scared,
Mm.
you don't let them go with their head down inside the water. You just take them in your arm and you have the head lying here, or you stand behind them and carry the head in your hands like this.
So they're
And
floating.
someone else is carrying the legs
Right.
underneath the knees so that there is, yeah. Then the breathing begins.
Mm.
And it's something then it all starts developing by itself
Mm.
because the person is having those experiences being immersed in the hot water. And some of the people are really beginning to relax. They relax their head,
Mm.
and you can see that the back is starting to move like around because they are hanging on your
Mm.
hand. And then the legs start to relax as well. And they became this little bundle, and you can just carry them on one hand
Yeah.
and take care that that snorkel is above the water so that they are safe.
Mm.
And then sometimes they begin to cry underneath the water. You can hear it,
Yeah.
but they cry in the water anyway, and the breathing continues because they have to snorkel, and it kind of forces them to stay connected with the connected breath.
Exactly. Yeah, I noticed that it's whether you like it or not, you're going to do the circular breathing, right? It just works so much better than like on a mat, like a dry session. Interesting.
And then sometimes they get very angry because they were angry. I don't
Mm.
know why, because they're under the water and they don't speak to me, but they start to scream in the
Mm.
snorkel.
I had a session last week like that with someone, and they started to make a lot of noise underwater. And I was like, wow, okay. Yeah.
And then they sometimes start to struggle
Mm.
because they want to be free. And then sometimes what happens is that while they were first really nice and relaxed hanging there, suddenly this body starts to move and it starts to fight
Mm.
and it wants to come up. And then they kind of rise out of the water and they want to stand. And they suddenly feel that there is power inside of them, as if they were eager to be born. Nevertheless, even if they are in that kind of mental state, and you start to then support them towards the exit of the hot water tub.
Mm. How
And then,
long do you remain in the water usually? What's your experience? I mean, I know it varies.
like I said, about 20 minutes,
Mm.
half an hour is mostly enough to bring up enough material to integrate.
Mm.
For me, and the people who is facilitating the session needs to stay clear-headed,
Mm.
although he is also immersed in the water, but his head is above and it's in the it's damp around him.
Yeah, it's warm. Yeah.
Warm, yeah.
So, how would you describe the experience and purpose of a warm water breathwork?
It is really to have the body remember what it is to be completely supported, to feel like weightless in a nice, wonderful, warm atmosphere, in safety because they are supported by two people,
Mm.
ideally.
Mm.
And then very often, especially when you start to guide them out of the water, then this whole birthing experience might resurface. Also, emotionally, and when they are then out of the water and they are standing in front of you and you have them look at you. And that is so important that we then look them in the eye and keep them here in contact.
Mm.
And that is really, John, because there has been research when a baby is born and the mother holds it here in her arm, that's exactly the distance that the baby can see sharp.
Mm.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I did actually. I did know. One of the things that I was taught to do, and I'm not sure if you were, or you do this in your practice with warm water breath work, is once we bring them out of the hot tub, um, usually, I hold their hand and I do the eye contact, but then I gently introduce some cold water, and we slowly spray them down from their feet and get them to breathe. It's almost like making the cold water pleasurable straight after the hot water. So we slowly spray them with a hose, and then just gently bring it up their body, and then they make a lot of noise, and then eventually we put it on their crown, and then it's so invigorating and joyful, mostly. Unless someone really, really doesn't want that, but I've never really had many people not like it. But it becomes incredibly pleasurable, and it's like you don't make the cold water wrong after you make it pleasurable, and they enjoy it. So that was another way of bringing them fully back into their body. And then we can wrap them up in blankets if depending on the weather. If they want to lie down, they can to integrate some more. Do you ever do that with the water? Have you been taught that at all?
I never did that.
Yeah.
That is because I was working very often in Germany. In Holland, we have a tradition that a baby is being born at home. At least that
Mhm.
was the tradition.
Yeah.
In Germany, babies were born since ages and ages in hospitals, and came out of the mom. The umbilical cord was cut, and they would take them away from the mother and wash them with too coldish water.
Wow.
Very often there is another shock
Yeah,
of,
right.
and so I would not like to disturb that moment of coming out of the hot water and then having the body adjust by itself to the temperature outside the warmth.
Mm.
In our case, we had to go like at least 10, 12 meters from where the hot tub was
Okay.
back to the area where the mattresses were laying for them to then integrate the rest of the session. So no, I didn't do that. And sometimes people would come out of the water and they would be so full of vigor.
Mm. Yeah.
So, huh? And there was a cold tub standing next or quite close to that area. And they would just want to go into the cold water. Then we would let them. But it was
Mhm.
not something that we initiated them into.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what kind of sensations, memories, or emotions can sometimes arise in a hot water session, a warm water session?
So, for example, for myself, I remember long ago a session where I was so in contact with the vastness of the, the speed of myself being born. It all cost my mom like nearly 3 hours. And I was the fifth child in my family. And I wanted to go out quickly.
Mm.
And at the same time, there was inside of me a deep desire to now move slowly. And 1, 2, or 3 sessions later, my facilitator really said to me, "How would you like to go out?" And I said, "I would like to have time." And so he took me slowly out. And we took a very slow walk over that 10, 12 meters where I was to go to my mattress to lie down. And it was the first time that I experienced why I have been so often in a hurry in my life. But at the same time, when I'm going to travel, I pack my suitcase at least a day before, and I'm completely prepared. I'm never late at an airplane or a train.
Mm.
I want to do it slowly, but I have been falling over in the streets, and I've been doing this and that always when my head was faster than my body could be already.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
those typical, for me, it was a typical birthing experience. Yeah.
I can relate to that too. Um, so why might someone feel particularly safe, vulnerable, or emotionally open in water? What is it that?
There is something so relaxing,
Mm,
having that warmth around you and having hands on your, I mean, often naked body.
mm,
You were like a child where there was no shame or anything to be in the nude, in the
mm,
nude. And the relaxation, I think, just like Sandra Ray used to say, love brings up anything unlike itself. Deep relaxation brings up anything that is not really relaxed in the body.
mm. And just for people that might be a bit nervous hearing about the nakedness, not all breath workers do the naked breath. It's up to the participant, and what
Completely.
they're comfortable with, of
But
course.
there were people in our 3 year training, and so they had at least 3 hot water trainings during those 3 years of 5 days. And there were people always would want to wear a
Mm,
bathing suit or a bikini
yeah.
or anything. And if that was the case, we would ask the facilitators to also wear something so
Mm,
that they were not confronted by other people being nude.
yeah, that's quite logical, I think. So, Tilke, who's kind of drawn to warm water breath work, and when would it not be appropriate to do warm water breath work?
In the same moments, for example, when we know that someone has a heart condition
Mm,
and the hot water might cause the body and the heart to work even harder because it's hotter.
mm,
Um, we had twice a woman who was epileptic, and we were very careful with her. And the first sessions we did with her, we did not immerse her. We had her lying down on our arm or something, or we were sitting in the water so that she could feel the body being, but then we could still have the eye contact with her while she was breathing and experiencing the warmth and the closeness of being together in that kind of way. But we could see when she started to move out.
mm,
Thank you God that never happened in
mm,
the water.
mm,
But we have had moments where a woman who had been on drugs when she was young, um, and being abused when she was young, like a child. And it happened twice or 3 times with her that she got so unconscious we had to get her out. But then it's quite a big woman. I mean, tall and strong, not thick, but.
mm.
And we needed like 3 men from the group and the other 2 female facilitators to kind of carry her out and put her on a mattress right next to the tub and bring her back into consciousness.
Mm,
But that was not, in that sense, danger. It was material that needed to go through.
mm.
And
So it was a strong emotion, or it was a strong, yeah.
yeah, and
Mm.
I know her quite well, and we lately had a conversation on the telephone. And she said to me, I asked her, "Do you remember that session?"
Mm.
And she said, "Oh, yes." Because what I experienced was that internal pull, that longing to go back into the drugs, to not know anything unpleasant,
Mm.
to numb those horrifying memories that I was having. And she said, "I am so glad that you have taught me over the years that even when I stay completely conscious and I keep my breathing going and I stay connected to my physical body, those memories are manageable."
Wow, interesting. Um, So what about cold water? Cold water, I guess, brings a very different immediate response when you say cold water. So let's help people understand what changes. So how would you describe cold water breathwork and how it is different from simply taking a nice bath or a plunge bath? Because it's not that at all, right? And a lot of people now with, I guess, cold water plunging and all that, it's popular, but we're talking about breath work, cold water breath work.
Yeah. We were in the fantastic position with our group that we were close to the Rhine River.
Mm,
There was a part that was kind of an old bending part of the river, which was closed off from the river. It was still moving the water, but we could very easily go and move there slowly inside. So the water was like in a sea. You go like this, and it
mm,
doesn't go steep like that.
yeah.
So what you do is you begin to stand with your feet in the cold water, and you keep your breathing rhythm up till your feet feel comfortable. And then you move this much deeper till your lower calves are comfortable. And then you go a little deeper and you go up to your knees. And then you meet all kinds of moments inside your physical body where there are memories about maybe a scar that you got in your hockey training or falling
Mm.
over when you were in somewhere playing in a playground.
What
And
happens to the breath, Tilke? Like what the natural response of going into the cold water and the nervous system, as we enter, do you notice anything there? Changes? Is it faster? Or of course we do circular breathing, but what happens?
the breathing is bringing your consciousness back into your body, and the coldness of the water that is slowly where you are slowly going into, and you will meet certain areas in your body where you have to stop
Mm,
and maybe go back out a little bit again, because your body and your nervous system will not be able to process the feeling that's happening. And so then you move a little bit backwards,
mm,
and then you slowly go farther in. And a cold water session is not about being immersed completely inside of the water.
true. Mm,
Cold water is about knowing your own physical boundaries and slowly engaging in them,
mm,
becoming friends with parts of your body that feel unpleasant, and then relax in there and then go deeper.
mm,
I remember, for example, a pregnant woman in the training, and she went in and it was very slowly. And so then suddenly she was immersed like over her hips. And then she sat down, and only her shoulders and her head were above the water, and she had her eyes closed and she looked like up into the sky, but she wasn't looking. She was just sitting
mm,
there, and her hands were floating
mm,
at her sides, and she looked like a Buddha.
mm,
And she said it was so wonderful because I could feel inside myself completely comfortable and warm.
Mm.
The cold water work is much more like a meditation that you do for yourself. I often say, sometimes it feels like it could be a physical preparation before you go and walk on fire,
Mm.
which I never did.
So, it's interesting
But it's
because
testing your physical body for its own boundaries. Yeah.
yeah. It's interesting, like for me, Tilke, I've been doing some recently with a colleague of mine. We kind of swap hot and cold water now.
Uh-huh.
Um, and, I have in my mind, I have a lot of resistance to it, especially if it's winter. However, when I do it, I truly love it. It makes me incredibly present in my body. Like it really pulls me into being embodied. And it makes
Like,
me feel strong. And I just come out and I feel invigorated. I feel alive. So, I know initially it can bring up some shock or maybe a stress response, but it is really about, like you said, stepping back if you have to. It is about integrity. You have to be in integrity to do this cold water breath work, not ego based, where look, I submerge myself or look at me, because I've seen that happen too, where the ego comes in and people just want to prove something. However, it is very sacred, I guess, kind of technique to do with the self and be in integrity. Can this practice help someone explore their relationship with fear, control, discomfort, resilience? What do you, all of that, I think, but what's your experience of it?
the body is actually full of fear.
It is.
It
Mm,
is. And so what you described there, after a good cold water session where you have completely be with yourself and with your own decision to go through this process,
mm,
and then you can feel not only strength but also like an inner pride. I
mm,
am able to be with me in any circumstances.
mm.
I can live through cold and stay well within myself.
I've also read, I don't know where I found this information a long time ago about a lot of, I think in Russia, there was a lot of communities that were exploring cold water, creating superhumans, introducing babies into cold water where they integrated and didn't make it wrong. And yet it built their immune system as well. I'm not sure how true that is, or I find that really fascinating. And I look at the Northern European, countries like Finland that do the cold water, and Sweden. I'm sure maybe even in your parts of the world where people do the cold water immersion.
When we did the cold water training in the summer, but it's sometimes, I mean, it's Holland, and even in the summer, it can sometimes be 15, 14 degrees outside, and it might be drizzling, and we went nevertheless.
Yeah, same. I've done it in the
So
winter as
the
well.
people who were facilitating that session would stay on the shore, of
Mm,
course, under an umbrella, and the poor people going in, they would be dressed because
mm,
over the water it would be cold. But then when they do their breathing well, their body, their legs in the beginning, and then the whole body starts to feel well and warm because
mm.
the breathing is so concentrated. And they bring that awareness of, I am able to do this inside.
And this is open eye, right? Most people do it open eye.
Open air. Yeah.
No, open eyes, right?
Open eyes. No, they can stand there and but they're
Okay.
whatever they feel.
Mm.
Oh, I suddenly have such a funny memory. We did our summer training, which is always a week in the south of France. And so we found a river to go in. But on that river, so you can imagine there were like 10 people standing on the shore, moving slowly inside that river, and people sitting on the shore looking what was happening and being present if there was any need for support. But there was also canoeing on that river.
Oh. Uh,
So what happened was that there were these people completely concentrated in a kind of meditative state. And then people on the river in their canoe were looking and like, they forgot to steer their canoe. We had such a laugh. It was so funny.
Well, out of context, they wouldn't have known what was going on with your lot. Yeah.
Oh, no.
So, Tilke, is longer necessarily better? Like a lot of people, I guess when they're meeting discomfort and, they want to force themselves to endure the cold. Um, what's a healthy self-regulation look like in the water?
I remember a personal session. My first birth that I gave to my daughter was very complicated, and they had to cut me
Mm,
to finally pull her out. And so when I did I think it was my first cold water session, and the moment that my pelvic area was touching the cold water, the pain of that cut,
incision.
that incision was horrible. So first I screamed, and then I got so angry because I remember that the doctor who did that delivery with me, he said to me, "You won't feel anything." And I was so angry remembering that moment. And I just screamed, "You bastard. You
Mm,
have never experienced that, and you don't know anything about what we women feel when that happens."
mm,
And through the release of the anger and the pain, it suddenly completely relaxed. And that whole area kind of, oh, like
mm.
it gave in.
So it was
It
like a
was,
cellular memory release.
it was amazingly beautiful. But it was quite a moment. Yeah.
So let's compare hot water and cold water again. What are the main physical and emotional differences between warm water and cold water when we look at emotions?
Hot water is about safety, about getting over feelings of guilt of moving inside of the womb, or getting over feelings of shame that you were not welcomed after
Mhm.
birth. Hot water is about being carried and being able to finally relax into someone's hands. Cold water is about getting yourself aligned within your own strength. Cold water is about being able to stand tall, being able to feel pride about being a human being walking on your 2 feet, for being the connection between heaven and earth.
Mm,
The other is about softness and surrender and this and that. And the cold water is about, I'm here.
I like that. Yeah. And I guess both of them are different to the nervous system, right? As well. Yeah.
Yeah. But because you do the cold water work,
Mhm.
can I start on you?
Mhm.
Do properly cold water work. You move in so slowly so you don't stress your nervous system. And if we do it right and we move into the hot water also gradually, and we support the person that we are supporting inside the water to really get accustomed to the heat,
Mm,
and then begin the immersing and the breathing through the snorkel and being immersed with the face down and the relaxation that happens. It doesn't need to be all that stressful. The stressful is actually more in the thinking and the thoughts that we have, the fearful thought something might happen.
Mm.
People are afraid to swim, for example. Those people will be afraid to go in the hot water. But going into the cold water, they don't need to be afraid to swim because they are not going to swim. They are going to stand on somewhere.
Okay, so um, what health and well-being screening should happen before someone takes part in either form of water breath work? I know we talked about high blood pressure before. What else? Maybe epilepsy, yes. Pregnancy?
Epilepsy,
I don't, I
certain.
don't, I don't work with pregnant people anymore. I think if I do any sort of breath work with someone that's pregnant, it's through the nose and only 20 minutes. I don't take them through full, conscious connected breathing. But what other screening should we look at for water sessions?
A heart condition, especially, I think.
Hmm.
You use a tub where you immerse other people. So if they have a severe skin condition, they don't go in.
Mm, that's true.
Um,
Mental health, I guess, is another one that I would screen.
Mental health
Mm,
has been screened already before we did
yeah,
some preparing dry sessions with them.
yes, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
And I would have someone, because we teach our people to start a breathwork session sitting up
Mm,
so that they can work with the breath and can see very clearly when the breath is really reaching up inwards through the skull, making
mm,
the connection with higher,
mm,
and then dropping that exhale energy inside the body and really dropping it deeper and deeper and deeper, and then working with all the thoughts that are immersing is no, how do you say that? The thoughts that are coming up.
mm,
And there will be a moment that we lie them down, but we don't lie them out, lie them down normally like right in the beginning.
mm.
And that is something um, Leonard already started to do that with me when he was giving me sessions. Have me sit up.
Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting. I must try that myself. Actually, I haven't done that for a long time.
You know
Um,
what? We'll exchange a session when we are together. I mean,
Absolutely. Not in a month, we'll be seeing you. Um, Tilke, what specific safety measures should a properly trained facilitator have in place for water sessions? Because I think that's really important for breath workers to be really aware of safety, of course.
I personally think that I would not give a client of mine a hot water session in a real tub where they go really deep in. When I am alone in the room, I would have someone be present in the room to watch
Mhm.
over me as well.
Yeah, I've seen it once we're in some thermal springs and they were so hot that the facilitators got activated.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in our training, there were always two people
Mm,
sitting on the side of the hot tub and three there was quite a big tub, and
mm,
the temperature was very well regulated, so it could go up to 38. And
mhm,
if it got hotter, we knew how to switch it lower a little bit.
mhm.
Always two people watching three pairs of three groups inside the water. Yeah,
So this leads me to, why people should never experiment with intense breathing techniques alone in a bath, a pool, spa, ocean, or plunge pool, because I know being part of the International um, Breath Foundation Integrity Committee, we have had some uh, knowledge of even people that are doing cold water plunging and stuff that have actually died from heart attacks and other things. And I read some research too about men should never really, I'm not sure how true this is, but I was reading about there's a lot of um, paramedics being called in the morning to males passing out in the showers from having cold water in the morning. And then the article went on to say that men probably should explore cold water sort of showers after 11 a.m., where their body kind of from, sleeping state it regulates and then do the cold water, which makes me think about a lot of the people training in maybe Wim Hof and other cold water techniques that really need to be very careful, and definitely for people not to experiment with intense breathing on their own. Yeah.
I don't think so too.
Yeah.
People should have quite some sessions, normal breathwork sessions, with a good facilitator, a good breathwork therapist, who has been guiding through them through inner emotional and mental material. And they have been integrating a lot. And then there comes a time when you tell them, and now you can go home
Mm,
and you do this by yourself, but you sit up in a chair and you just put your kitchen clock on 15 minutes and you
mm,
start to breathe 15 minutes connectedly, thinking like Michael Brown teaches us in the presence process. You get a
mm,
mantra, I'm here with me in this moment.
mm.
Yeah,
Just to be clear for people, watching this conversation is educational. So water-based breath work should be approached with appropriate sort of health screening and trained supervision. Breath holding or forceful breathing in or around water can be dangerous and should never be practiced alone. Also,
exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
You know what,
yeah.
John? The basic conscious, connected breath. It is. It has three elements. It's the breath.
Mm,
It is connected breathing, but it is not just connected breathing while being half conscious. It is conscious connected breathing. And the other element is watching your thoughts.
mm,
Because what people still don't understand, I think, enough, is the moment that my body has been trained to breathe consciously and connectedly, it brings energy in movement inside my body. And I can, in the beginning, I experience it like tingling or champagne inside.
mm,
After a while, my body gets accustomed to being in that state of aliveness. But now my mind goes, a judgment here, another judgment there, a judgment about her, about him, about myself. Because my aliveness has been heightened, the power of my thinking is more than before. So when I evolve in my breathwork, I have to evolve as a human being in the quality of what I'm thinking. And so a breathworker has to understand really deeply inside him or herself that every thought has an immediate effect on my state of being.
mm,
When I keep walking the street, judging people on their physical appearance, on the color of their skin or the whatever, that has an immediate effect on my inner state of mind.
mm. Hmm. So, um, back to cold water breath work. What might people notice after a session, Tilke? Like physically, mentally, emotionally?
They feel together.
Mm. And what about
They,
integration? What does that
yeah,
involve? What's
they,
the
they
integration?
feel they feel that it is really their birthright to
Mm,
be standing tall, to have a certain strength, inside, to be proud of being a human being.
What would you say to someone that feels curious about water breathwork sessions, but also scared? What would you say?
Get accustomed to the conscious connected breath with me before we go into the water.
Simple.
Extra challenge, huh? The water.
Are there any misconceptions about water breathwork that you would like people to know about? Like, do you hear of any misconceptions?
Today, people hear about diving in cold seawater. People hear about ice bathing. But they don't understand yet that needs preparation and training. And the mind needs to be trained before we go into those kind of challenges.
So Tilke, if our viewers remember one thing from our conversation today, what would you like that to be?
It's still about like a human kind of love developing. When you are my facilitator, you develop a space for me to explore who I am. And because you will be accepting of who I am, and you will be accepting of my emotions, I will feel accepted and loved. And if you put me inside of the hot water or you go with me to the cold water, that underneath love, acceptance that is there when you work with me, that is the basic. I think, for me, at least. Because in the
Go on. Sorry, say that again.
In the end, it is the love that heals.
Yeah.
I remember that it was not Diana, it was not Leonard, or it might have been Diana Yogi or someone from those very early ages who said, if I would read the telephone book from New York with you, but I would be completely with you, that would be a fantastic session.
Well said. So, Tilke, thank you so much once again for helping us understand the difference between warm water, hot water, and cold water breathwork. And really appreciate today's conversation. I know that I have a million more questions I could ask you. And I mean, this is a really fascinating part of breathwork. And when I was thinking about what I'd like to talk to you next, I just went, yes, that's right, because you've written such amazing articles as well, which I have passed on to my students for hot and cold water breathwork. So if everybody's found this valuable, please subscribe to this channel, and there'll be information about Tilke and how to get in touch with her as well. So thank you everybody for watching, and I look forward to maybe our next conversation soon, whether it's online or in person, Tilke. I really, really appreciate you, and thank you so much for your amazing wisdom and knowledge, and I love you dearly. You're a dear friend. Thank you.
I thank you so much, John, for having had the idea to do this together. Thank you.
Thank you too.
I thank you too.